I was basically raised in Rice's Landing, Pennsylvania, and, on the Monongahela River. It's a small town in Pennsylvania. I had a lot of energy as a young kid, and so I think I drove my mother crazy. And growing up where I grew up, everybody wrestled. I had two older cousins who were in a wrestling club in the area, and so my father just put me in there. I think it was good for my mom to see me get out of the house, and then for myself, after my first year, I didn't have a winning record. I was like every kid, and by my second year, I started to turn the corner and get some wins under my belt. And then my father, asked me what my goals were one day, and I wrote them down. I wanted to win the Olympic Games. I wanted to be the best wrestler ever. And at that point, my father, kind of got involved with me and worked with me on, through this journey that I started. I discovered the sport of freestyle through my dad. He brought it up to me that there was a national championship that I could win for my age group, and it was in an international style of wrestling. And so I competed in freestyle that summer, and I, like any little kid, I was throwing headlocks and cement jobs, and I won a national title at 7 years old, and I thought that was the coolest thing on the planet. And at that point everything changed for me. At that point it just changed, and at that point I wanted to be the best in the world. In high school, I believe I was so dominant at that stage of my life. Technically, I had hours in. I studied the sport, I mastered the sport. I was always seeking out, new partners that I could train with. I was watching video as much as I could. Physically, I was stronger than most people I wrestled. Conditioning-wise, I was typically ahead of them. And so that combination of things allowed me to be the dominant on the high school level.
He was always thinking one or two moves ahead of everyone else, doing one move to set up another move. He'd work with the best kid in the room. He'd also work with the worst kid in the room. I was able to stay with him a little bit, freshman, sophomore years. After that, I took a lot of beatings in the rooms and learned a lot off of him.
What stands out most to me about in high school is I feel like to some extent the whole community kind of lived through me in a sense. Like it gave my town something to be proud of. We hadn't had a state champion in years. Our team became really successful as the group of guys that I trained with as a young kid came up through high school. I remember winning my state title and the fire trucks waiting and taking me around the town on top of it along with my team members, and we had a parade. I remember school being canceled for a day so they could have a dance to celebrate our team championship and our success at the state tournament as a group. So that was probably the biggest thing I remember. Besides, being undefeated, it was how it pulled everybody in the community together. When I was in high school, I was never caught up on age. I got to the point in the sport of wrestling where it was simply if you were the same weight, I'd wrestle you. At that point, I started looking at the U.S. Open. I started looking at college open tournaments, and I just started making the leap. I figured, why am I going to sit back and wait if I'm capable of doing it? And I always believed I was capable of doing it. So. I would bypass high school events. I would enter the U.S. Open. And so I was trying to train and learn from the best and wrestle with the best at an early age. When I hit college, that's when I found Team Foxcatcher. I was part of Team Foxcatcher when Dave Schultz and all those guys were still there. And at that point, I started to, I was guided by, the world and Olympic champions. They had training there, guys in the program who helped mentor me, guys who took care of me when I was on trips with them overseas just because I was a young kid. And so at that point, I aligned with the team, and that team helped guide me during that time. And that was, Dave Schultz and John Gira and Kevin Jackson, all these guys that made up that powerhouse program at the time.
He excelled at every level of the sport, and he's one of the best technicians that our country's ever seen. But I really got impressed with him when I saw him in the 1992 Olympic trials at Penn. It impressed me that a high school kid would have that much passion and, feel like he should have been there. He set his goals really high, and that's why he went so far.
Back in the early 90s when I was a volunteer coach at Penn State, and the first time I remember working out with him, I remember thinking, this kid is going to be pretty special. And I had no idea how special he was going to be. But, from day one, he was a fierce competitor, extremely hard worker, and very dedicated.
if I look back at something I'm most proud of, you know, I had a lot of controversy in the 1998 World Championships, which forced me to completely wrestle back through the wrestlebacks, facing multiple world champions along the way, and to win bronze, I had to, you know, beat an eventual Olympic champion and multiple world champion to do it.
It was definitely one of the gutsiest performances and two of the best wrestlers I've ever seen in the world, going back to back. Your strength and your balance and your flexibility and your speed put you above 98% of any wrestlers I've ever seen in this world.
You know, I did not achieve everything I wanted to achieve, but that's just life. Life's not always fair, but that is life. And you roll with it, and you adjust, and you make changes, and you improve upon your mistakes, and you don't repeat them. I look back at the journey where I'm at right now, and I'm probably most proud to say that, you know, wow, I stuck with it for all those years. The biggest thing that wrestling has given me when it's all said and done is I met my wife through wrestling. And my wife gave me 3 great kids, you know, and so, I mean, that's probably the biggest impact it's had on my life. When I started my career, I never thought about the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. When you're young, all you do is face every battle that's in front of you. And I never really gave it much thought. And now at 43, when you look back, you say, wow, I mean, look where I'm at. I didn't achieve an Olympic gold medal or a world gold medal, the things that I set out to do in the sport, but this definitely caps it off.